So, in my presentation, I will be doing it on music in the Jewish synagogue. The reason why. As a Christian, I sought to deepen my understanding of a different religious community than from the one that I was raised, with the intention of examining the differences and similarities between their worship practices and those of my own. So, a little bit about my personal experience. I grew up in a mainly Hispanic church, Pentecostal, where I was part of the worship team. I usually sung, but mainly played drum set as well. The team would meet once a week to choose and rehearse the songs for Sunday morning service. This included vocals, piano, guitar, and drums when available. The songs range from old Hispanic hymns that we know them as corridos to any contemporary Christian genre that as a team we would deem appropriate for the service. The service also consisted of 3 praise songs, which were usually a beat, and 3 worship songs that were usually slower, with the sermon that followed. So for my fieldwork, this was not the case. In the synagogue, the team consisted of a cantor, quartet of singers, and a pianist. The genres for the songs were mainly hymns from the Torah that were constantly repeated and sung with very similar melodies. The team would deviate from the melodies during the highest of holidays, but not the words. The service and the music are significantly more intertwined than anything I had experienced. So it was a back and forth the entire service between reading portions of the Torah and singing melodies of a blessing of a certain prayer or a certain thing that they were going through. The readings and the songs would come from the book, the Mishkan Tifala, which is their prayer book, and was usually in Hebrew with an English translation attached to that. And this was just for visiting people like myself could follow and understand what they were singing. From my understanding, rehearsals for my fieldwork, they actually don't meet until right before the service, considering that most things are repeated pretty often. They just have a quick little rehearsal right beforehand, choose a certain melodies and whatever processes, and go off of that. So now in the sanctuary itself, along the walls, something different from anything I had seen, there is plaques that are display the memory of members or relatives who have passed over the years. Right? And then on the stage in the front, you have the ark, which is where the written Torah that's been hand scribed and everything is sitting, and it's behind 7 closed doors. Very fancy, very beautiful, very ornamented. In the center, you have the eternal light that sits a little bit farther on the top, which is lit right before every service. And then you have the podium where the rabbis and the leaders read the Torah from. And then you have the cantor and the pianist that are slightly set to the right, stage right, or stage left itself. The cantor and the pianist are not actually on the stage itself, but on the bottom, close to the stage, which I found different. Right? Back home, everyone on the worship team is included into the stage as well. Everything's set up and propped open. and it was kind of different. It was different to see that they were set aside, still in the front of the temple, but not on the stage. Okay, so for my tools, I did a few things. I did an in-person interview and a questionnaire style of interview. The two people that I will talk about is a singer that has been part of the group since 2002, is a trained musician, and which that has allowed them to adapt and learn the repertoire quickly and efficiently. The other is the music director that has been with the congregation for over 35 years as a director and is also a trained musician. Okay. So my findings for this, the singer is originally a Protestant and joined the group as a paid vocal job. Back when she was in college, she was approached by someone that was previously on the team to see if they wanted to be part of it and learn. So some of the highlights that they talked about was that they loved learning about the religion, the Judaism, and discovering that the Jewish beliefs did not conflict with their own. They emphasized the difference between Reform versus the Orthodox Judaism, which allowed them to make the conscious decision to actually officially join the church. For Reform, the views of the Jewish laws and the tradition are historically important, but they adapt them to modern life with an emphasis on the ethical principles that come with it. In the Orthodox Judaism, the Jewish law and the traditions are to be binding and unchanging. Another thing they notice is Hebrew and expanding scriptural understanding through participation. So she states that over the years they have learned the Hebrew just through the sheer practice of doing so, and just the sheer practice of like having to sing every week, and then they explain a concept of transliteration, which is just when there's a word or text from one writing system is changed to another writing system without changing its meaning. And it's just a way for us to understand and grasp what that is in our language versus seeing it in the actual Hebrew text. Our second respondent, which is the one that is the music director and has been involved for 35 years, notes that the presence of the quartet and the worship team have a really close and tight relationship. Highlights the community's sensitivity also to the rise in anti-Semitism as a bonding force, and describes the congregation also as a small and lovely family and dedicated musicians. And something that this person made evident in their answers is that there has been quite a bit of turnover in the leadership. As stated, the Jewish community is very small in Lubbock, so they have someone that comes in from another part of Texas every now and again to lead them, which is other than having someone in the congregation do it as well. But that it's been tough because no one wants to make that drive or commit to making that drive every now and again. But the thing that makes it easier, that they stated, is that the musicians and the music director have been the most consistent element across the leadership, and that makes it easier because the congregation knows who they are, knows how they sing, knows how they operate, and they make it evident that that's an important part. This responder is also not familiar with Judaism, but didn't mention whether or not what other form of religion they were before joining, but grew to love the culture and the language. So now we go into this cultural geography. I decided to do a focus map, which is something of an adaptation from Henry Glassey's cultural geography mapping, where in his books The Folk Housing in the Middle Virginia and The Passing of the Time in Baltimore, he draws the different maps of the environment around him, of the actual city and the infrastructure, and even to the detail of the house and the architecture of the house and how it's mapped out throughout. So what I wanted to do was, because this is something that I struggle with sometimes, especially trying to sit and focus, was see the focus of where the congregation was from section to section during the service. So I drew different maps of different points in the service to attempt to show where the focus should be. This also gives a representation of the landscape of the sanctuary and the exchange that is happening between the rabbi or worship leader and the cantor and the congregation. So you can see in this middle picture, this is a drawing where at the bottom left you see the cantor, you see the piano, this is the stage, this is where they hold the ark behind this. This is the stage podium for the rabbi or the leader, and this is where the candle is. So you can see all these people are focused on this because it's the beginning of the service. And then you can see when the cantor starts, it all shifts. And then when the candle's getting lit, it also shifts to that. So, in conclusion, I just wanted to state is that music is not simply an aesthetic element in this congregation. It is the structural, emotional, and cultural core that binds individuals together. This is through the decades of participation, the musicians' interviews reveal how a ritual sounds foster the resilience, nurtures the belonging, and sustains a communal identity across generations. If you have any questions, be free to reach out, and thank you for listening.